Welcome to the CatholicPsych Show. Monday morning, on the heels of Father's Day, we will be talking about a school of fatherhood. We'll also be talking about the clown show at the Vatican, comedy special with Pope Francis.
Not the clown mass.
No. And we'll also be talking about napping today, sleep and napping. And if we have time, we'll get to social conventions changing everyone's favorite segment, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Greg.
That's your favorite segment.
That's my favorite segment. How are you doing on this Monday morning?
Oh, I caught the kids' bugs. I knew I was coming back in for it. I was sick a couple weeks ago in Texas, and then I was clear for a couple days, and then I caught a whopper of a head chest cold and pink eye. Yeah, it's like adults don't usually get pink eye, but
are you sure it's not bird flu?
I think what I had before could have been bird flu. That was very possible.
You know, one of the stories to review today that I was potentially going to review was all the hype around bird flu. And, you know, if you read the fine print, it'll say it's nothing to worry about because it doesn't affect humans, but they try and scare you about the bird flu as part of the news cycle. But I was talking to a friend of mine. She's one might call her a rural expert. And she shared that it's really just kind of like red eye irritation for the most part with humans. It's really not that much to be concerned about. So I'm just, when you said you had pink eye, I'm wondering if you've had any contact with birds.
I mean, I don't know. We have some cats in the yard that do their damage. The kids end up playing with stuff in the yard, but I don't think that was it. I mean, the pink eye is pink eye.
Yes,
we got that diagnosed.
I've had it as an adult,
and then we got drops, so we have and they makes it go away. So that part is. But the first round of sickness, we had like kids with temperatures. They were like 104. There was weird stuff happening. I lost vision at one point. Then I was deaf from congestion. Anyway. We don't need to get into all that. But that was my weekend. So I'm on some meds right now.
Are you in a good mood?
I'm in a great mood.
Okay.
Yeah, life is good. You know, I've been watching Chosen, and man, that's just such a good devotional exercise to watch that show. So it like puts everything in perspective.
Yes,
they're doing a great job.
That's awesome. I mean, we were talking Friday about whether, like, the relationship between mental health and spirituality, and how in some cases, just because you're growing in holiness doesn't mean you don't have mental health issues or even physical health issues. A lot of times your holiness, your personal development is dependent upon your relationship to the ills of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where you're at. You got to respond.
Exactly. I mean, this is real life here. I mean, it depends on because cognitive functioning is a study of, or a function of psychology.
Right.
But I can tell you right now, my cognitive functioning is not well.
Impaired.
It is impaired. So that if you're talking, it's like, what part of psychology are we talking about? That's definitely influenced by physical health. I'm not thinking clearly right now. I'm not totally sharp on details of things like I normally am. Add to that medication I'm taking for the cold. That doesn't help. So my psychology is affected by my physical health, and my psychology is affected by my spiritual health. And both may be going in totally opposite directions.
Potentially.
So here we are. This is good integration.
Yes. Great integration.
How was your Father's Day?
Father's Day was good, kind of rough. So just to follow up on a story that we had previously about me getting me having sleep apnea and getting the mouthpiece. And you're concerned because your dad was a dentist that you can screw up your teeth, the Z sleep thing. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'd wake up and it'd be like all over my mouth. I think if you go to a dentist and get a fitted one to help with snoring and sleep apnea, those work. But just buying the generic product doesn't work. And I don't know if this right here's the controversy. I don't know if this is like post-COVID. If this is like some kind of COVID thing, but my sleep apnea, like I always snored. I always had an issue. My wife would say, you bad snoring, or like, you go some time without breathing in the middle of the night. And I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Cause I would just sleep through it. and I didn't want to wear the Darth Vader mask,
Right.
the CPAP machine. But it's gotten worse. It's gotten really bad.
Mm.
Saturday last night I was praying to Saint Joseph, the patron of sleeping, and I actually got a decent night's sleep where I only woke up like 3 or 4 times. But Friday night, and Saturday night, I must have woken up like 30 times, like suffocating, couldn't breathe. So I'm actually gonna go in and so anyway, point is, I was like an exhausted mess on Father's Day itself, but I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna have an appointment with an actual real doctor and maybe get the Darth Vader machine and help with my sleep apnea. Everyone I've talked to who has gotten it, says that it's life changing. So
Well, yeah, I've heard that too. I've looked into it a little bit. One correlation. I hate to say it, but was there any evening scotch involved? Either
uh,
of the nights that you were feeling.
uh, Saturday night the Celtics played and they lost, so there was some scotch.
Because the alcohol actually,
Yeah, it makes it worse. Yeah,
loosens up the muscles, and those muscles in the back of the throat that contribute to the snoring.
yeah.
I pretty much figured out like a full correlation between the two. So whenever I'm really struggling, it's usually a night of having some drinks.
Yeah. No, but it was bad Friday night too. And Friday I didn't drink anything on Friday.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's getting progressively worse. I'm ready to wake up refreshed every day. That's what they say. Like the
Yeah.
sleep apnea is correlated to like hypertension and high blood pressure and all that. But more importantly, you're just not sleeping every night. You think you're sleeping, but you're not getting that deep sleep. So
Yeah.
I'll be a much better host for the CatholicPsych Show after I get the CPAP machine.
There you go. Well, that'd be interesting. Whole new world.
Yes. But the family was great. They were wonderful to me. I got a Super Mario Brothers Father's Day T-shirt, which was awesome.
Nice.
So, yes. But here's the segue, wonderful segue into Father's Day and the School of Fatherhood. Here's our first story for the day. At a one-day workshop run by Care School for Men in Bogota, Colombia, a male medical student at Sanitas University learned how to cradle a baby. What is this? A school for how to be a dad. Class begins at Sanitas University. A cohort of young men gathers the supplies they need for the lesson: a plastic doll, rash ointment, and diapers. At Bogota's Care School for Men, an innovative city-led program, men learn how to tend to their families and homes and to step up to do their share of housework and childcare. From changing diapers to styling a ponytail. Do you know how to make a ponytail?
I'm learning. I'm not good at it. I know how, but there's a manual dexterity involved that's I'm just not good at.
Yes. Okay. This is, at least in Colombia, prevailing cultural beliefs dictate that women are naturally better and suited to housework and caregiving, while men are better suited to paid work outside the home. Okay, and on and on and on. So here we are. It's Father's Day weekend. There's a school teaching men how to be dads. If on this day, June 17th, 2024, Dr. Greg Bottaro, you started a school on how to be a father, what are some essential skills that you would teach fathers? Would it include things like changing diapers and making ponytails? What would be some of the courses, some of the skills? What's your reaction to a school on learning how to be a dad?
Well, a couple things. First of all, when you said Care School for Men, I thought you were saying you got to be careful. I thought it was going to be Hair School for Men. It was like the hair club for men. That's what it reminded me of. I told you, not very sharp today.
I'm not only president, but I'm also a client.
That's where my mind went. So, it's funny. I think I love this. I mean, it's beautiful. It reminds me of, from Mulieris Dignitatem, JP2 says that men would learn their fatherhood from women. This is a really, interesting concept, and it's a big part of complementarity that, there's a certain dimension of human interaction and being oriented towards the person that comes through with the feminine genius. And in terms of what men have to offer, in order to have a sort of desire and kind of magnetism or draw towards the children, it doesn't come as naturally as it does to women.
No, not as naturally. No.
So, and I'm always careful to couch that, because then people are like, what, men don't love their kids? Like,
Well,
no, that's
what
not
does
the point.
naturally mean too? What does naturally mean too? Like
Right.
nurturing
So,
behaviors.
right. And then we also make the distinction that what's biologically natural is not the fullness of our human experience. So obviously we learn how to do things as humans that are
Mhm.
not as natural in terms of what our brains are sort of the baseline proclivities of our brains. So there's there's a beautiful thing here. And it's like men have so much to offer in their fatherhood and to their children and to their families, but they need to grow into the desire to apply it to their kids. And that's what, is a big problem, that people think the difference between men and women, you get into these like traditional sects of groups, and it could be like Protestants, it could be different groups within the Catholic tradition. And they're like, oh, women are in the home and men are outside the home. And that's like the man's job is to do what's outside the home. You look like you have a comment.
Yeah, well, so that would seem to be the case in Colombia, at least according to educator Juan David Cortez, that about these cultural beliefs. I think in the United States, okay, maybe in certain Christian sects, that is like it's a like return to traditional views. But I think overall in the United States, this is broken down quite a bit in terms of shifting of gender roles and men being involved in housework and cooking and changing diapers and things like that in the larger culture. That doesn't mean that we have good fathers. Like it's
I'm
all
not talking about the larger culture. I'm talking about like just the Catholic culture.
okay. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't want to start a whole nother, firestorm debate and all this like inflammatory stuff like we did with like the
But
whole Latin Mass
that's
thing.
exactly what we want to do. That's why
But
we have a show. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't want
I
to
mean,
start a firestorm of debate?
I'm not trying to upset people is what I'm saying. If we get more attention on our channel and our show, great. But my point is, within traditional communities of people striving for living a Catholic lifestyle, there
Yes.
seems to still be a common thread of understanding that the women's role should be in the home and the man's role should be outside the home. And that's what complementarity means.
Mhm.
And there is a very deep philosophical error in that. And it's something that the great philosopher, she's a sister, still alive, Sister Prudence Allen, has talked about as fractional complementarity. And the idea is like this is such a limited perspective.
Yes.
And a real deep Catholic John Paul II understanding of complementarity is that it's not that we're different and we just do our roles and then the whole system works because it's like two puzzle pieces that make the whole picture. It's
Right.
actually we're supposed to grow and learn from each other. So the man has to grow in his orientation towards persons, namely his children. So he receives from the feminine genius an education in how to be a better version of himself, in this case a man and a father, which is why John Paul II says that men learn their fatherhood from the mother. It seems like this school of father, schools of dad, school, whatever, in Bogota is Bogota. Bogota.
Bogota.
I'm not gonna even try.
The accent's at the end. It's on the wrong syllable.
Okay. it's 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 great. It's moving in the right direction. It's like good. Like men should be learning how to be more nurturing, how to take care of babies. Like I've literally heard men at men's conferences speaking about at Catholic men's conferences talking about like being a dad and then sort of in jest or lightheartedly just saying like, well, I don't really do the babies. Like that's my wife's thing. I'm not really interested in the kids
Right.
till they're like 6 or 7. And then, we could go out, throw the baseball in the backyard. It's like,
Right.
okay, maybe that's biologically, it's
Easier.
biologically reasonable. Huh?
I said easier, biologically easier.
Easier, yeah. And it makes sense biologically while that's true. But that is, like, we're not animals alone. Like, we're not meant to just stay in our base animalistic biology. Like, the point is, you have to learn how to be as interested in your babies as you are in your 8-year-old that you can throw the baseball around. Like,
Right.
it's not about what you feel like you're more interested in. So dads have to learn how to care about their babies. And then dad bringing in his masculine genius, which is all about toughness, separateness, like not falling into the temptations of being over oriented towards persons, and having a separateness, a distance, a space, is the genius that needs to be taught to the children. And it can't be taught to the children unless there is proximity, unless you're close.
Can you give a concrete example of what you mean?
So, it's like, just when kids are playing and they fall and get hurt.
Sure.
And, it's like, you got to learn both that you're loved and that you're resilient.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have both, then you don't have a fullness of human development. So you need mom, and it's also dad having learned from women that is like, are you okay? Where are you hurt? Let me pick you up. Let me hold you. Let me nurture you. That comes from mom and dad. But more naturally, it comes to mom. Right. And then you have dad. What comes more naturally to dad, and also mom grows in this, learns this from men, is like, it's gonna be all right. Just get up, go back to playing. You're not gonna die. You're not gonna bleed to death. Just suck it up, toughen up, tough it out. That those messages come from that distance of sort of separateness and space and seeing the big picture.
Sure, which moms can and should learn from dads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between the genius and then the application, which is the nuance that I think most people in our church don't get. Like, most people in our church are not teaching. And people think, oh, if this is the masculine genius, this is what men do. If this is the feminine genius, this is what women do. Wrong. That's not correct. That's an incorrect understanding of complementarity.
Yeah. I sort of would want to expand the frame of what we're even talking about here. This school, we're basically talking about division of labor, right? Like, what this school is promoting is like how to change a diaper. I think it comes from the imbalance of men historically contributing to domestic responsibilities, but changing a diaper doesn't make someone a father, right? Like, changing a diaper is not that hard. It's a task. Being a father is about communicating presence. If I were to start a school today, it wouldn't just be skills. There would be personal relationships, right? Because you don't learn how to father outside of a relationship with a father, right? It's someone that's walking with you, engaging with you. I hate to break it to people, but I think people believe that parenting consists of what you say to your children, but it's not. Like, most of what your children learn from you is just the way you live. It's by example. It's by modeling. It's by engagement. It's by presence. It's not teaching things. That's a part of it. But children are sponges. They're always observing what you're doing. They're always learning.
Well, you're taking this to a whole nother level of like how to build a good school for parenting, which is actually something we're doing. But besides that,
yes.
So the Bogota School for Dads is not.
We could do a much better school than than this one.
I was just great to hear. I was grateful to hear that somebody out there is doing it, being like, oh, this is important for people to learn.
But my point, though, even if it's not about a school, I'm just saying that it's too limiting. It's too limiting to think about what makes a good father or a good mother based on division of labor and tasks around the home. It's really about engagement and being present more than anything else.
Yeah, being present, but it's not. So it's present to people. It's present. Like, this is what dads do need to learn more about.
Yes.
So like the presence, like Ellen on YouTube just said, yes, as you change a diaper, you look in the child's eyes and share your love. So it's like, you could change a diaper like it's a task. I think this is what you're saying. Or you can like change a diaper because you're nurturing a person.
Right.
And that's what, men need to learn, the second step. But it's almost like the first step is like, hey, this is your kid. You should care about their diaper needing to be changed. Because I've also seen it be like a male-female thing where it's like, I literally have, God bless them. I have friends that I've seen this where it's like, they're living like a wonderfully exemplary life, but it just becomes part of the culture of like, oh, if the baby's up from a nap, like it's It's mom's job to go get the baby. It's mom's
Right.
job to change the baby. It's mom's job to feed the baby. Now, if you're talking about breastfeeding, obviously, that's like
Yes.
that's where it starts. But that's why that's an example that men can be learning from. It's like, oh, this is how to nurture a baby. And then guess what? Our job is as men to actually grow and actually learn how to do these things better.
But it's drawn from loving the child, not doing a task.
Right.
Like that's what's going to motivate the father to get up and change the child, is thinking about how the child is feeling,
Right,
and the
but it has
poop
to do
and the
it
diaper
includes the
rash.
task. Like that's got to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
step
yeah.
1.
Well, I think it's secondary. It's that you're moved by love for the child or for your wife, who's probably exhausted, and then the task is easy. The task, like, that takes care of itself. Like, division of labor is secondary to
I think
how
you got to you got to be more realistic with like what people are used to. Like men don't know how to change diapers. Like that's not normal.
I never knew how to change a diaper until day 1 of having my child.
Right, but
Like,
you
the
are
first day.
oriented to learn how to do like you wanted to learn how to do that. Most men,
Right.
I mean, I'd love to see what people are thinks here. I've met dads from Catholic Fitness Coach. I've met dads who've never changed a diaper. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm like. A lot of dads don't even think that it's their job, and so they don't even know literally how to do the task.
I know it's the easiest task, is my point.
It's not the
not
easiest task. That's the point. You're saying it from your position where
to
you've
change a
done it.
diaper?
Do you know how many nannies, babysitters, like other people that have we watch like people in their 20s that are like, okay, you should
That
be
don't
able
know
to do these
how?
things.
That
They
literally do not know
literally don't
how.
know how to change a diaper. Like I don't know how you're not recognizing that reality.
I mean, it's because it's not hard. It's not a difficult task. I'm
No
sure people.
task is difficult once you learn how to do it. The point is
No,
nobody ever thinks they should learn how to do it.
yeah, no, I'm with you. I think someone saying like I don't know how to change a diaper is not a true statement. They do know how to change a diaper. It's that I don't want to change a diaper. I don't want to learn how to change a diaper. But the task itself is one of the simplest tasks. It's not a challenging task. Like you could like if you were watching your kids, if you're someone that never changed a diaper before, and your spouse for whatever reason was out of commission, wasn't home, and you had to change a diaper, it's not as if you couldn't. It's not so challenging a task that you couldn't teach yourself how to change a diaper in 30 seconds. The task itself is not hard.
Look at you've been in it for a little while, but maybe you haven't seen enough bad diaper changes. But you have blowouts and all sorts of diaper crises because of diapers not being put on correctly. The tabs aren't lined up. The front is on the back. The back is on the front. People don't even know there's a difference. Like
It
all
literally
sorts
says
of
back. They have color
if
coding
you know to
now.
look for it. But most people don't even think like, oh, there's a front and a back.
Yeah.
That's like these are. All I'm saying is like go to the basics first.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You start with milk before you go to meat. You start with the basics, and a lot of people are not even starting with the basics.
It's
And just
upsetting.
the fact, like the fact that men should be doing the basics of baby care is already like mind blowing to most of the world. I'm
Yes.
gonna put that out there, including American culture.
You know,
Now
on this
listen. There's a subsection of American culture,
okay.
and this is where I think it goes too far.
A subsection of Christian culture
No,
or American
American
culture?
culture.
Okay.
And I don't want to offend any of our audience. This is my personal opinion, but when
This
I
one
see a dad
wearing the
wearing a
thing?
baby Bjorn
You can
walking
say-
around with the baby strapped to the chest,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Look at great men wear babies. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm not saying it makes you less of a man. I'm just saying
But dude.
personal opinion here. Disclaimer, personal opinion. Don't strap your baby to your body. If you're a man, you can hold the baby, carry the baby, stick the baby on your shoulders, carry him under your arm. You could do whatever you want, but anyway.
Studies show that men typically hold their babies outward while mothers hold their babies inward.
The outward facing cradle with the one arm across the chest, one under the butt. with the legs
Preparing the
dangling
child for the
forward.
world
Absolutely.
rather than creating safety.
I love that. That's the perfect image of, I mean, it doesn't always have to be that way, but that's the, like, I'm in church sometimes, I hold the baby that way, and then they start fussing. You got to turn them around, you got to play, whatever. But okay.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like, you're close. You're holding the baby close. The baby knows they're close to dad. But they're facing outward. So dad is teaching the baby how to be in the world from his masculine genius perspective.
Sure.
And that's a really important lesson for that baby to learn. I think that's just a great image that sort of wraps up our whole point here.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about fathers who are resistant to caring for young babies, what comes to my mind is a line by Pope Benedict. He talked about how the most impressive thing to him about God is not how powerful God is, but how powerful God is, and then he still makes himself so small. And he takes all of his power and harnesses it and becomes tender. And when I think about men, and I think about the difference between like a out of control, angry Neanderthal sort of man on one side, and then you think of kind of an underdeveloped, softer man on the other side. Like the goal is to be able to retain your power and harness it and control it and focus it on what is tender. It's like a football player. Like the analogy is a football player. Like the quarterback that can throw a football like 80 yards doesn't make them good. No one likes them. It's the quarterback that can throw it 80 yards with pinpoint accuracy, with the finesse, with the delicacy. Like that's what being a father is. That's what being a man is. It's taking all your power and strength and using it to be tender and engage with the most fragile of creatures, which is your child. Like it doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you, in a certain sense, more developed as a man to be able to take your strength and be tender.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great articulation of complementarity and the delicacy and the nuance of these ideas. That's a great
So just
image.
pretend you're a quarterback. If it feels weird, dudes out there, just pretend you're a quarterback. You want to make it to the Pro Bowl. You want to win the Super Bowl. You need accuracy, not just power.
Yeah, and sometimes, you got to learn how to have the adaptability and cradle, you cradle the football in close, but sometimes you got to juke this way and move the ball over that way, and it's like
you got to run out of the pocket.
You can't strap that ball in. you got to be able to get it out.
Run. You got to run out of the pocket.
Stop tying up with cloths and wrappers and swaddles.
Yes. All right. Some good comments here. Practical advice from Nick Medley. Name your child Gotham so that when they cry at night, your wife could say, Gotham needs you.
That's great.
Enthusiastically. Let's see what else we have here. Yes, as you change a diaper, you look at the child's eyes and share your love. That's right. You connect with the child. It's more than just a task. I thought men had limited shoulder mobility compared to women. That makes it easier for them to cradle a baby. I mean, it's possible depending on like your torso and stuff, but I don't think that's an excuse to not hold the child up.
Just physical strength alone makes it easier for a man, obviously, I could pick up the baby by the scruff of the neck, hold him up if it. I don't do that. I'm just saying, at moments when I need to, grab or move or do something, it's like
your back muscles. Well, your back muscles get huge when you start having kids.
Yeah, that's true.
Holding the kid all day long, you get, it's that old man. It's the start of old man strength. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so how can we wrap this story up? Everyone, we want to emulate God the Father here, right? How can we bring in the plane for a landing here in terms of fatherhood, what we're called to?
Well, I think
we give some direction to people.
We have to realize it's not an either or. It's not an us versus them. It's about like, let's embrace the beauty and gifts that God gives us in our natural masculinity, and then also recognize that He made us man and woman differently for a reason, and it wasn't a mistake. And if we look deep enough, it might even make sense that this is part of how we become saints. And that means becoming a better version of ourselves because of being in deep relationship with each other. And if we can learn what we're missing from the other, we will grow and become a better version of ourselves.
If you feel like you've mastered the I'm a man thing and you're looking for something interesting, like grow in the gifts of the feminine. You'll never master that. So if you want to not be bored in your life, try and develop in the gifts of the feminine.
You know, I was trying to wrap it up, and you just open up a whole new awesome conversation. But I do, I do think that that's part of the problem is that not enough men have mastered the "I'm a man" thing.
Yeah, it's true.
So there's such an insecurity.
Yeah.
That it's not like a solid, secure base of like, I know who I am. I'm just not going to do that woman thing. It's like, well, if we're not really solid on what we are to be a man, then let's be really, careful and hesitant to do things that maybe are for women to do. What does that mean? Am I not a man?
Yeah.
Like that's how we're in the mess that we're in our culture.
Yeah, if it rubs your ego the wrong way to change a diaper, like we probably need to look at that. What's going on? If it makes you feel like less of a man to, wake up and rock the baby back to sleep during a nap, it's not. We don't want to just justify that by talking about roles and roles and gender roles and division of labor. It's like maybe there's something you got to look at in terms of why you feel uncomfortable doing something that breaks traditional convention like that.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
In flux. All right. Has the plane landed?
I think so. What's next? We could actually do this all for the full hour.
We could.
People love this. I mean, it's an important topic that people are confused about. So,
yeah. All right. Why not have a father strapped to the fad? I'd love to see that. Paula says.
I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure either.
Let's move on. Next news.
All right, next amazing news story. Something a little bit lighter today about Pope Francis. We can't avoid this man. He's our Pope. Okay. Pope Francis hosted a meeting with famous comedians. We alluded to this, but it actually happened. Including Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Whoopi Goldberg, Chris Rock, Jim Gaffigan, discussed the role of humor in fostering hope and community. I like that. Sounds good so far. This event underscores the intersection of faith and popular culture. This is when it gets dicey. Following the advice of St. Thomas Aquinas, I didn't know St. Thomas Aquinas said this, but this is interesting. Those who lack playfulness are sinful. We could spend some time on that. The Pope joked that instead of reading his prepared speech, I'll do this and we'll all laugh. And he went like this. And everyone laughed. All the comedians laughed when the Pope did this. In the midst
like
of
the rooster thing, if you're just listening and you can't see, that's like the little rooster thing at the top of the head with the thumb and the fingers.
So here's the quote. It's an interesting quote. In the midst of so much gloomy news, immersed as we are in so many social and even personal emergencies, you, talking to the comedians, the Pope said, have the power to spread peace and smiles. He called the ability to make people smile amid their problems a, quote, miracle, praising their ability to, this is when it gets fun, denounce abuses of power and inappropriate behavior and to give voice to forgotten situations. Humor, he added, does not offend, humiliate, or put people down according to their flaws.
I'm confused.
What do you think about his conceptualization of humor? So just to read again.
Well,
denounce abuses of power. Denounce abuses of power. And inappropriate behavior and give voice to forgotten situations. That last one I like. That's very Seinfeld, right? Voice to forgotten situations, which are humor. It's the ability of the comedian to see things that we all kind of experience but don't articulate. That's funny.
I feel like he's so unclear. Like he's so unmeasured, immeasured. Like I don't even know the right word to describe. He's chaotic. The way he thinks and talks is chaotic.
Humor does not offend, humiliate, or put people down according to their flaws.
Of course it does. Like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, it does.
Is he saying like what God intends for good, pure humor is like if you want to be humorous in a positive, morally good way, this is what I want. This is what I mean. But then it denounces power. What does that mean? Can you read that again? Denounces what?
It's literally that. He called the ability to make people smile amid their problems a miracle, praising their ability to denounce abuses of power and inappropriate behavior and to give voice to forgotten situations.
I don't know what in the world he's talking about here. This makes zero sense to me.
Is this like a I'm tempted to make some jokes about like him challenging structural inequality and abuses of power and
Now,
the
of course,
patriarchy.
it's like it sounds
It's like,
terrible.
is this like a liberal kind of agenda here? What is this?
But also not offending people. Humor doesn't offend people. Like what? How can you denounce abuses of power? Like show me one person who's denouncing abuses of power but not offending somebody based on their flaws.
Oh no, I mean comedians offend everybody.
No, but this is what he's saying. Humor does not offend people based on their flaws, but humor denounces abuses of power. How is that not a contradiction?
He's saying attack systems but not people.
Show me the comedian. I'd love to hear somebody who's denounced. Is this like an Argentinian thing? Maybe this.
I mean, a lot of times, what comes to my mind is like George Carlin, like criticizing the Catholic Church, but not any members of it. A lot of comedians will go after institutions like that, but they don't call out an individual.
Maybe that's a stretch, but maybe.
But I don't agree with it. I mean,
I know. I'm trying to even understand what the heck he's saying. Forget about agree or disagree with it. I can't even understand him. I do understand why he did not invite Dave Chappelle or Cat Williams, though. now I get it.
Say more. Why?
Well, obviously those are two of the most offensive comedians out there. Although I from the rest of the people
Chris
that
Rock
invited, yeah, I mean,
Chris Rock is crazy offensive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. The whole thing is.
Well, I mean, we have some Catholics there too. One of whom is Stephen Colbert. He said that after shaking hands with the Pope, that the connection between faith and humor is in the back of his mind all of the time. Stephen Colbert. I mean, not in the front of my mind. In the front of my mind is what the joke is. But at a certain point in the back of my mind, you have to say, do I want to tell this joke? And does that go with everything else that you are besides a comedian? So at least he's weighing his Catholic faith with the jokes that he's telling. Especially doing political satire, you're kind of dancing around with a knife in your hand, a lot of you in your hand a lot, and you want to be careful who and what you cut. So it was lovely to hear the Pope acknowledge that there's a value in that for people's hearts. It made me think a little bit harder on how I want to use it.
One of the best example that I think of just a comedian in general is who I loved in college, and now we let the kids listen to, is Brian Regan. Mm-hmm. You ever listen to any Brian Regan?
Yeah, I like that he's wholesome, but I don't think he's that funny. I don't like his delivery. I don't like his delivery that much.
His delivery has gotten more amplified and accentuated over time, but
yeah,
just listening to like the first, which was a tape back then, it like he's got such a good way of like that Seinfeld kind of thing where it's like he just brings out the humor and the most basic human experiences and just like almost bland, banal situations of just like what's funny about like a little kid sitting like playing outfield in a little league game.
Just observational humor.
Observational humor. He turns it into the just the funniest thing. Yeah. So it's and then I think systems too. He's good at that, just in terms of like calling out the sort of hypocrisies and illogical sort of things about systems. Anyway, yeah. It's just I don't know. I mean,
Jim Gaffigan, I know you have some strong feelings about Jim Gaffigan not living his Catholic faith outwardly, although he's kind of the Catholic guy, said, and now you have to become a priest, he said to his son Patrick after he received a pat on the cheek from the Pope. I know that Pope Francis always liked comedy. If I was like Stephen Colbert, educated about Catholicism, I'd be able to reference St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Thomas More and all that stuff, but I can't. I'm just a dumb guy that went to church and tried to listen, but I pay attention more now. Assembling this group of comedians is like the ultimate Hail Mary for the world's ills. The Pope's like, what if we just call in all the clowns? What if we just get the court jesters? It's like the ultimate Hail Mary. He's saying the world is in a terrible place. Like, this is our last vestige of hope. is to try and evangelize the comedians, which in a certain sense, they're the few left that can speak freely as best they can. I mean, they still get canceled and whatnot, but there's still some space.
No, it's fine. I
think
mean, there's different opinions, you know? He thinks we got to bring all the clowns out, you know? Then you have like Dostoevsky that says the world will be saved by beauty. I guess,
not
you know,
clowns.
just people that have different opinions. I guess some people are, you know, they're just not going to they're not going to agree at the end of the day the best way to help the situation, but
What do you think about Thomas Aquinas' quote? Those who lack playfulness are sinful.
well, I think there's a lot
That's a
to be
large
drawn
statement.
from that.
It's a large statement, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I
If
think
you're
I
not
think there's
playful,
a
if you're short-tempered, if you're angry, if you're overly serious, that probably creates a context in which like sin breeds.
yeah, and I think, I mean, let's take it like the full quote. It's like, or the actual quote. It's like those who lack playfulness. That doesn't
Yeah.
say like those who are, ever irritable. Those who are ever upset, who are ever disappointed, who are ever not playful. It doesn't say those who are ever not playful. But I think in context, in that sense, it's like those who lack playfulness. In other words, people who are never playful.
Mhm.
That seems to be a deep breeding ground and also indication of a kind of separation from the joy of God in this world.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
like they're
hard.
just
I
certain.
can't imagine how you'd be connected with who God is and not be able to find playfulness in different aspects of life.
Yeah, I think with joy comes a spirit of lightness, of playfulness, of bounciness,
Yeah.
of buoyancy.
By the way, we just watched Inside Out 2.
Oh boy. How was that?
It was really good.
No way.
It was really good.
I heard that it was the second most popular or second highest grossing film, animated film of all time. There was been a lot of whispers that of sort of a woke agenda in that film. You didn't pick up on any of that?
Here's the thing. I think Pixar, I think they just threw, for lack of a better word, a Hail Mary to try to figure out, like, if we go back to what worked, will it work?
Mm-hmm.
And they just kept out the woke stuff.
Really?
Totally.
Wow.
And
That's
and
great.
so it's really interesting because it really just went back to the simplicity of although, it's funny, I saw some friends down in Texas, and this is a family that I know down there, and they're actually, he's probably listening right now, but shout out to Mike Marshall, who's doing a fantastic job raising his children. And his daughter, who I forget if she's like maybe 15, 14.
Yeah.
We were talking about Inside Out, and she goes, "Did you notice that the girl Riley, even in Inside Out 1, her mom's parts inside of her mind were all women, and her dad's parts inside of his head were all men. They were male versions of the parts. In Riley's head, the girl, it was a mix." She's like, "I wonder what they're gonna do with that." I was like, "Holy cow! That is one of
Wait,
the most insightful observations I've ever heard about this."
yeah. Wait. Riley versus who? Who's the other
Her
character?
mom.
Her mom.
There are a couple of scenes where her mom showed her parts,
Yes.
like at the dinner table, like how they responded to Riley
And they
not
were
wanting
all
to talk
female.
about her dad. They were all female.
Yes.
So like anger, joy,
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
suspicion, like
I
they were
do.
all female versions of the parts. In the
Yes.
dad's head, all the
It's all
parts were the
men.
male versions of the parts. But
Yes.
in Riley's head, anger in her head is a male character.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
That was crazy.
What do you think that leads to?
Well, I have no.
What
They didn't go anywhere with it. But this is
Right.
what they did go. They did show her. I mean, first of all, kudos to Pixar for doing this correctly. A 13-year-old girl is more concerned about the girls in her life liking her and her fitting into the social crowd. So
Than
there's some
boys.
peripheral talk about like a crush or like a boy band, and there's some like a very light peripheral touch on that those things. But It's really this idea of just fitting in with her girlfriends, and you saw nothing anywhere of like any kind of actual
Sexuality.
sexualized perspective.
And identity was generally feminine.
Yeah, it
Right?
wasn't. It was not sexualized identity at all. It was essentially this like a core sort of split between I'm good enough or I'm not good enough, and building a sense of self. It's like, am I good enough? And then she had all the memories that build up this idea of her sense of self. And I see people are commenting like, "Oh, she didn't develop an identity yet. That sounds bad to me." But if you watch the movie, like, it's not even about that. It's not identity in the woke world today where they're talking about, and they're precisely mean sexual
male
identity.
or female.
They're really going to like real
Human
psychological identity, exactly, of like even just what I feel and believe about myself as a person in the world, not sexualized.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. Anyways, they're talking about joy. We had some good conversation with the kids afterwards. I took a few of them to see it yesterday. So, and there was, this idea of joy. And then we had this whole conversation. Elijah was talking about like the difference between joy and happiness, and what does it mean to like really be joyful, even if you're not always happy, and like those kinds of, it's awesome. Like between Mike's kids and our kids and your kids, like having kids is just like the best thing in the world. So anyway, circling back around to love being a dad, I think let's connect all the dots. They could be funnier. They're funnier than all these other comedians out there. So
yes.
Well,
that's great. I haven't seen it. I'm excited.
Around.
No, that's great. St. Francis. Well, I mean, Pope Francis. I always call him Saint, but Pope Francis talked about don't be afraid to waste time with your children.
Exactly.
That's great. That's a great line.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I haven't seen the film. I was hesitant to. I was cautious. I was cautiously optimistic about the film, but I was a little nervous that it would be ruined and soured. So it's good to hear that.
No, I was super impressed. I mean, I've learned now that you gotta, any movie these days, you gotta check out the family reviews online, and there's a couple websites that do that with like, they give grades to like different things, and I was deep diving the reviews on that one to figure out like what are they gonna do with these characters, and they were super positive. So, add love family on Instagram. Why is anger only from dad? Women can be very much angry people. That's true. In the movie, they show mom has an angry part. So, and Riley has the angry part. And it was that in the mom's mind, her angry part was female. So that's why that was a little suspicious about Riley having this different.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to go in the direction of agenda, though, right? It could be that she just associates anger with her dad.
Well, so this is why I didn't pick up on it originally, because even in Parts Theory, and they had they had an internal family systems consultant making the movie.
Right.
In Parts Theory, you can have parts that are more masculine or feminine, which is why it actually makes a lot of sense. Even how we can understand transgenderism. It's like, actually, we all have parts that can be neutral, or they could be masculine, or they could be feminine. So I didn't pick up on it at first until Mike's daughter said, but all of mom's parts were women and all of dad's parts are men.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait a minute. So what's the frame that they're operating out of? And why does Riley have this mix? It's interesting.
Very.
Audrey, I don't know if they still use the IFS consultants on this film. I didn't look that up yet. So that's something to find out, definitely. But it seemed consistent. It was the next level of sort of self-development. So if you're thinking about like sort of psychological developmental phases, it was pretty nuanced. Like they definitely had some consultants, so they did their homework. But
what's IFS for our viewers?
Internal family systems, which is that parts theory world.
Yeah, it's a theory of psychology which talks about how we have different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
Should we go into it a little more than that, or should we just leave it
there? I think we'll leave it there.
All right. If people are interested, send questions to the mailbag. We can talk about parts theory. It's really helpful.
CatholicPsych.com/blog, and then look up parts theory. We've done a lot of content on that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So you want to go to social convention, or you want to go to napping?
Well, we
Your
got
choice.
9 minutes left. I know you love talking about those social conventions. If you
All
are,
right,
if you
we'll
want to
leave
jump in
napping.
there.
We'll leave napping out. All right, maybe we'll get to that on another episode here. Okay. Number 8, the word F word used to be the taboo of taboos and was reserved for only the most expletive worthy occasion. It's everywhere now. Use of the
Uh,
F word has become commonplace.
Honestly, I'm not like big into a lot of stuff media where that would come up. I don't
Well,
really surround.
just in
I
conversations, though, I think people in the world, it's like it's true. That was I remember the movie A Christmas Story where the kid drops the nails when he's changing the tire with his dad, and he says the F word, and it was the worst word of all
oh yeah,
possible words,
oh
right?
yeah.
And he gets soap in the mouth, and it's a hilarious scene. But that was the way I understood or experienced that word when I was a child. Everybody uses that word now. It's in the office. It's everywhere.
I'm just trying to say I don't know what it was like before. If people, I feel like I was around it and heard it a lot more before, earlier in my life, than it is now. My kids are being raised that way.
Mhm.
They know that's the worst word that can be said,
Yeah.
and I mean, besides for maybe like Gary V is a social media guy that I follow. He's a marketing guy, and he's got
He
some
uses it a
great
lot.
content. I love
Yeah.
Gary V. And he
Yeah.
not only does he use it a lot, but he has like content around like, why is it even a big deal? Like, why is it a bad word? He's like uses that in front of his kids. His kids use that word. He has
Yeah.
like reels on Instagram where he's like arguing with teachers, proving the
Yes.
point of like, why is this even a big deal? Why do you even care? So I
Yeah.
know that it's sort of in the ether. I just don't know. I don't know where I'm not. I never hear people using that word.
The word, generally speaking, has been depowered. It doesn't have the same power as it used to because of the frequency of use in the larger culture. But I mean, if you delve into what the word actually means, I mean, obviously it's objectifying, derogatory way to describe sex, right?
Well,
That's
that's one of
that,
the so this is the interesting thing. A lot of cultures have words like this that are
yeah,
different. They're not directly translated. Like
yes,
my cousin in Italy taught me a word in Italian, in Sicily specifically,
yeah,
and he said it basically has the same connotation, but it has like multiple uses. And it's like when you're trying to learn a word in another language and you explain to somebody what it means. It's like, what if somebody has English as a second language? Try to
right,
explain the F word. It's
right,
like, well, it's this word in all these different contexts. It means different
yes,
things.
yes,
But the, so this word in Italian had the same thing. But then I also saw it like on a can of beer. And it was
mm,
like they used it as a brand name for a kind of beer. So then it's like, all right, so it's not as socially unacceptable, but then maybe, I
yes.
don't know, would you find the F word on a can of beer? Like, is there going to be some craft brew that's like, oh, this is now socially acceptable, so we can put it on a can of beer?
I would still have a reaction to that word on a can of beer.
I think our whole culture would. I don't think we're at a place where you're putting that
No,
on beer.
no, definitely not. Yeah, it's interesting. There's also there's a term that we use that's probably one of the worst and most derogatory terms to call a woman, that in Australian culture is commonplace, and they use it like it's not a big deal. I don't even want to say the word right now,
Like the
but
B word?
no, it's worse than that.
Oh,
It's the C word,
and
and
that's commonplace in Australia?
that's my understanding. I could be incorrect. I could be wrong, but my understanding is that word is tossed around very casually, and people aren't deeply offended by that word.
Oh my goodness. Any Aussies listening right now, if you guys if you if you want to fill us in. Although actually there's no Aussies listening right now. It's like middle of the night over there. But
Yeah, this is a good question. Hannah asks, "What do you think? What do you guys think about the correlation between intelligence and using profanity?" I think that I, it's like comedians that the most creative comedians don't swear, right? I think bringing things back to the world of comedy, I think sometimes people use profanity as a filler when they express themselves instead of taking the time to creatively use uh, I don't know, higher language, more complex language. And so it is, I don't know that it correlates necessarily to intelligence, but maybe like one's vocabulary and one's memory, what they're able to draw from their memory in a given moment. So I don't think it's unrelated to cognition.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely a correlation. That's what the research shows, and I think it's and yeah, there's different values of speech,
Yeah.
different ways that people speak. It's writing and speaking as two forms of communication. I mean, we also see this happening with the kids now. They're in classical curriculum. They're learning how to write in cursive, and nobody knows how to
Well,
write in cursive.
I was gonna say they're the last people that will know that.
Right, but there are enough people out there learning in Catholic or classical curriculum, whether it's Catholic or not, but there are still people learning that. And this is what I see happening is
Return.
with progressivism, there's a decrease in intelligence. And so the kids who are being raised with conservative values are going to be the smartest people. And they're going to be running the world.
Oh, there's your clickbait.
for I mean, it is the data shows it. So it's I don't know how far you want to go with that, but that's bear for good. Cursive is cool as F. That might be the comment of the day right there. Thank you for adding in that humor.
We're tying it all back in today.
That's great. What's the next norm? You want to jump on another one before we finish up?
Yeah. People pulling into a driveway and blowing their horn, expecting you to come out to them. That was not the way I was brought up. If you went to someone's house, you'd get out of the car, go to the front door, ring the doorbell, or knock and politely wait. Ringing the door, honking on your horn from the driveway.
I don't know. That one feels like a stretch. Is that happening? I don't know. Maybe that's happening.
I think it happens in the world of adolescents and teens and younger folk. I mean, the world of dating, I think it has special import, right? If someone's going to date my daughter and they're coming to pick up my daughter, you better come to the door. Don't sit in the driveway and honk the horn.
I just feel like these are stereotypes of where things like what would have been talked about in the 90s or 80s. And I'm like, do people do that? Is anybody using a horn? Like, who's honking their horn in a driveway?
Well, nobody's picking you up. Think of the world in which you would be picking someone up.
Like,
no one's picking you up, but I mean, kids get picked up still.
Right, but everybody's got a phone. Like, it's an app thing. Like, people text each other, I'm here. Nobody's honking a horn from the driveway. Like, Uber, they show up, they sit there, your phone notifies you that they're here. Like, if you're...
That's a good point.
I can imagine the kids, if they're driving and then they're showing up to pick somebody up, they're going to text and be like, I'm here.
That's a good point.
Now, let's use that now. So if you're texting to say I'm here instead of getting out of the car to go to the door, I don't need to see research to guarantee that that's what happens. Nobody's getting out of the car to go pick somebody up and go to the door.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's horrible. I mean, it's just lazy. It's an atrocity. It's like there's like how. That's like another how many opportunities for human engagement do we want to just erase from the playbook of the day?
As an adult, it's so rare that I'm picking someone up or someone's picking me up that it's usually around some kind of like special activity. And I would want to enhance that special activity by like having more human presence. And it makes it special. It's probably a special activity anyway. So I'd want to get out of the car and make it more special by greeting someone at the door or waiting within someone's house.
Yeah.
Because it's so rare.
Just the humanity of it. Exactly. So it's like, I tell this story, just the radical difference between our culture and Haitian culture. If you go to Haiti and doing work in Haiti, being there for a bit, just a good example of this is there would be, say you're in a village and you have to go to another village to get something or drop something off, or there's like a main town where you could go I think I had to go like get some light bulbs that was being sold at this main town. And it was
Yeah.
probably like a 3-hour trip. Well, long story short, because we're out of time here, but it took literally all day. We left in the morning. It took all day to get to the store. We didn't get to the store until the evening because there were 3 stops along the way, and each stop was coffee, a biscuit, sitting outside talking, helping somebody do some little bit of work. There was like, you're just in the community. You're a part of the community. It's
Well,
not
do people
task
have
oriented.
jobs though? Well, like that sounds great if you don't have a job.
The job, no, it's totally different. I mean, it's Haiti. You're in the middle of like abject poverty. It's the poorest country in the
Yeah.
world. But so
Yeah.
jobs, it's not like people are going to their desk and sitting there with their 9 to 5. I think our culture today with remote work, probably people have more freedom to do stuff like this. It's like
Yeah.
they have the freedom of like, all right, what's your job? They're like tending to animals, or they're making charcoal, and then you're going to go sell it in the market or whatever. It's like these are long drawn out processes that are not like a 9 to 5.
Right.
They're up at dawn and they're, working till the evening, and then, they're enjoying family and food, and their job is like, let's gather together for the vegetables so we can have a big meal this evening and have all our neighbors here. It's like a community event. It's like those are the kinds of things that are happening. So
That's awesome.
you stop, somebody shows up. It's like, oh, you guys are here. So everything stops.
Yeah.
It's like, start
It's
making coffee. Go bring
yeah.
out some little snacks. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
poverty
life.
is it's so interesting that poverty it's like a paradox where poverty is terrible, but it also affords a lot of freedoms and community and connection that a more successful society doesn't allow for.
Exactly. And we could learn from both, and we could have certain conveniences and obviously eradicate sickness and look for different production and creativity that comes from that, but not leaving behind the humanity of that kind of life. So,
And have time for naps. We didn't get to the story, but naps are good for you, everyone. 30 minutes every day, daily routine. Really good for your cognitive functioning. 20 to 40 minutes.
bingo. I need a nap.
After you eat, though,
Yeah.
you got to have the food and then nap. That's my idea.
All right. Well, here we are.
Happy
Another
Happy
week.
Monday.
Have a great week, everybody. God bless you.